This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We got a lot to get to today, including an early look at SMU's opponent this coming week, Florida State. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, guys, I got to remind you that we are presented by our friends at StatusJet. StatusJet.com. Reach out to them today. It is time for the away game stretch of SMU season. Starting next week, they'll go on that run of facing Louisville, facing Stanford, facing Duke. So for the month of October, treat it like StatusJet month. Use code PonyUpACC for a discount on a round-trip flight organized by StatusJet. Fly in luxury. So reach out to David Henry and his entire team. They've got quotes all ready to go with estimates as far as how you can get from Dallas or wherever you are for SMU's away games this season. So reach out to them using that code PonyUpACC, and we will see you in the skies with our friends at StatusJet. Welcome back to the On the Pony Express podcast, and I am now pleased to be joined by a member of the On3 network from warchant.com, covering all things Seminoles. They're one of the OG websites out there. So with your On the Pony Express subscription, give them a read. Check out all their content at warchant.com. But Warchant's own Matt LaSerre joins the On the Pony Express podcast now to take a look at the Seminoles. Matt, thanks for the time. How are things over there in my home state?
Good, man. Good. I could say the same exact for you. I'm excited to get back home for me to Dallas this weekend.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Matt actually went to high school at Frisco Reedy, went to high school with Noel Matthews, and also with Nate Anderson as well. So he's very familiar with the DFW area. And Matt, what is the temperature right now around this Florida State program? You get the first win of the season over Cal, 14-9. But where do they go from here now as they've got that first win? How big was that?
I mean, it was big. I don't feel like the fan base enjoyed it enough is what I've seen from a lot of people on Twitter, on the message boards. We enjoyed it that night, and then we looked at the offense, we're like, this still isn't great, right? So I think what people really want to see is an improvement from that offense and just have the defense keep going as they're going. Really good this week. I mean, you can't ask more from the D-line, getting 7 sacks. I think this week the test against the SMU O-line is going to be really tough. Probably one of the best they've seen so far. I don't think Cal's O-line was very good. So I just think if they can keep doing it, the defensive line, if they can keep doing it ahead on SMU's O-line, will be a lot more positive.
And for this Florida State program, it's been an adventure, especially offensively, to try and get enough points to win. They finally do that against Cal. DJ Uyunglele, I remember him coming out of high school. I remember him at Clemson. He found that success against Oregon State. What's been the offense? What are the issues over there in Tallahassee for a coach who's normally able to put up points?
Yeah, in my opinion, it does come down to the offensive line, and it hasn't been great. Part of that, I think, was Alex Atkins was suspended for the first 3 games due to a recruiting violation or a portal recruiting violation because they seemed very improved coming his first game back last week. And, DJ hasn't been great, but not everything's on him, right? The offensive line, if you don't have protection, you can't throw the ball. If you don't have any blocking, you can't run the ball. And this offense, DJU wasn't brought in to be this superstar like he was coming out of high school, 5-star. I think he was number 1 in the country for quarterbacks, at least number 2, if not 1. We wanted him to be more of like a game manager. We want to establish the run. That was the main point. And you saw it with this running back room when they brought in Roydell Williams, Jalen Lucas to be that speedster specialty back. Obviously, both of them are out this game. Jalen Lucas out for the season. Roydell Williams to miss extended time, we found out today. But you bring in Cam Davis, a freshman who is huge, right? He doesn't even need to lift when he came back into the program. Trey Benson, who's now at the Arizona Cardinals, was even like, yeah, that kid, he's good. Like NFL weight-wise, you're good to go. So he's going to take over for him. the main thing they always want to do is just establish the run so then they can open up that downfield pass. You saw them get to do that a little bit against Cal last week. One ball was a little overthrown by DJ to Malik Benson, but you had that perfect ball to Ja'Kai Douglas for what ended up being the winning touchdown. So you're starting to see the flashes from DJ there, right? It just hasn't been enough for you to really be happy with the performance, right? Like the interception, Norvell said today when we talked to him, it was all around a bad play. He didn't really blame DJ. He just said all around it was a bad play. But yeah, man, it's been a roller coaster for sure. At least we got the one win, and maybe that's enough momentum. The biggest difference has been practice. So we're lucky enough to get to see practice every day. Norvell lets us do that. And the big message has been let loose and have fun. Like, don't stop pressing, stop like thinking about, oh, if I do this and then this bad thing will happen. Just go out and have fun. You're kind of starting to see that more in practice where they're having fun competing with each other.
And honestly, going into that SMU-TCU game, I mean, that was kind of what I picked up from SMU side. They had been kind of tight a little bit, and they figured out how to play a little bit more fun and fast, and it all came together for them last week. And of course, it came together for FSU getting the win over Cal. What is the run game like? Is that where, they really focus all of their attention and energy? I remember Cam Davis, too, coming out of high school. I mean, like you said, very much a physical beast back there, a former 5-star as well.
Yeah, I think this running back room is still stacked. Well, it is young with Jayla Lucas and Roydell Williams gone. I still like where they stand. You got Danzy, who's another freshman who I don't know if you haven't seen a whole lot of him, but he got moved off scout team once Jalen Lucas went out for the year, and he's a speedster, man. If he can show it off to the people, it's something to watch. It's really fun. Outside of that, you also got Sam Singleton, who's another young guy who's kind of shown out. Sorry, I'm looking at the depth chart too, and I'm almost forgetting Lawrence Toafili, who won the MVP at the ACC championship game last year, who really, I think it's good for him that he now gets to be that guy and be that workhorse, because in the ACC championship game, that's what they needed, right? And we saw that last week against Cal, to where he can make plays if you give him the space and you keep giving him the ball. And I think that's going to be the main guy that they want to make plays against SMU.
And, with this offensive line, it seems like they've kind of been nicked up too. Jeremiah Byers, has he been out? And kind of where does the offensive line stand, injury-wise?
Yeah, so Robert Scott and Jeremiah Byers were out last week. Rob Scott's been injured on and off for 2-3 years now, so that wasn't a super surprise. Jeremiah Byers, Norvell said today they like where he's progressing, and they think he'll be available this week, or at least he feels good about it, were the exact words, I believe. So I think we'll see it there. Jalen Early had a good start and a second start last week, also at tackle. Darius Washington, before the Memphis game, actually had some freak thing happen. We don't know what it was, but some freak thing happened in warmups to where Early had to start on a dime, which again is tough to do when your offensive line coach, Alex Atkins, isn't on the sideline for that game. So I think that helped him at that tackle spot, having him back last week. Again, it was a huge improvement, and that Cal defensive line is still pretty good. That defense is pretty good. So I think when it comes to the offensive line, they're going to be healthier this week, and I think having Atkins is a big deal.
And you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, and Patrick Payton was named the ACC Defensive Lineman of the Week. He had 3 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, and just had an outstanding showing in that game against Cal. That group that the Seminoles have on the defensive line, it kind of reminds me of SMU's in terms of the depth and the talent that you and I talked about on the War Champ pod. But, this is a big-time defensive front that the Seminoles have. Can you kind of dissect them a little bit and what makes them so good?
Yeah, I mean, there's what are they not supposed to be good at, right? I mean, going into the year, get on ESPN, going into game day, that Georgia Tech game, saying, hey, this defensive line is going to be the best in the country, or not if, one of the, second or third. Disappointing start, obviously. It just didn't seem like they were there. Didn't feel like they were as motivated as they normally were. And I think the biggest thing was Fuller our defense coordinator, Adam Fuller, simplified it down and said, Farmer told us after the game last week against Cal that just go eat, go attack, go eat. And I think that really motivated them and got them going, right? Farmer was a force this past week. So was Peyton. Marvin Jones finally getting in on the action. I know a lot of people from the FSU side wanted to see him just because his dad's that big legacy, Marvin Jones Jr., and he hadn't done much. And then had 2 pretty critical sacks at the end of the game. Just finally getting that push. One guy people don't really talk about that much because he's not a starter. Daniel Lyons, through even the bad times of the D-line at the start of the season, was kind of that bright spot. He had the most TFLs. I can't remember if he had a sack or not, but he had the most TFLs, and he was really the only one doing much on the defensive line. Obviously, that has changed, and I think they got the motivation to finally keep going forward and building off that momentum. And even Daryl Jackson, a guy who is an athletic freak, right? I think he was on the freaks list at the beginning of the year. He didn't get to play last year due to not getting the waiver, but just a freak that you're waiting to him to really pop.
What's that linebacker group like? DJ Lundy, Omar Graham, Cam Riley, DeMarco Ward, and similar to SMU, they play in a 4-2-5 most of the time with a nickel. I mean, what's that linebacker group like for them?
Yeah, so that's probably the thinnest group on the defense. It's the one that everyone gets mad about on the message boards about when it comes to recruiting, transfer portal, everything. That's the one people want to get better. But Blake Nicholson, sophomore from California, has really kind of come into his own in his second year in the program. He's gotten a lot of playing time. Adam Fuller even said, I don't want to say he solidified his position, but he's getting the majority of the snaps there. It's been really good. DJ Lundy is someone who was supposed to leave for Colorado in the portal and then came back. That was essential for them just because that was the one experienced guy you had in this defense at linebacker. He hasn't been great in pass. That's one guy you don't want to see in pass coverage. That if SMU does see him out there and wants to throw the ball, it's probably the best time to do it. And then Cam Riley, transfer from Auburn, who came in this summer. He had to wait to graduate from Auburn to come, but he has been really good. He's second on the team in tackles, been a really good addition to this team. And lastly, one of my favorites, a Texas kid from Katy, Justin Cryer. He had the first interception of the year for the team came against Memphis, and it was him. And it was a really nice interception, like great catch. He hasn't done a whole lot, but he's someone who I really like as watching him develop and just being like a natural born leader. He's going to be a guy for years to come for Florida State.
You know, the secondary for Florida State is another one where some unicorns running around there. Fentrell Cypress, Azariah Thomas. I remember covering Earl Little Jr. in high school as well. He's the nickel. Shaheem Brown's been playing really well at safety. What's the secondary like overall for the Noles, and just what's their style? What's their calling card to the back end?
Yeah, I mean, those kids love playing man-to-man. They get really hyped up playing man-to-man because I forget what game it was. Like, yeah, they like throwing the ball up when we press and doing everything, and they like our guys, we like ours. So it's really fun to watch them compete and play. Really, they got the swag and all that kind of stuff. You saw it start to come back last week in practice, having fun. AZ's locked down, Fentrell's locked down. You don't see them getting much stats, but also when you're a corner, that's a good thing. That means they're not really throwing the ball your way, right? Shaheem Brown has been the one true leader on this defense all year. He did miss a game, and he still leads the team in tackles, which is always good to see. But yeah, he was when this team was lacking leadership in the first 3 games, going 0-3. He was the one who was trying to get them going and talking to all the guys, really trying to get the communication going, which was a problem between plays and before plays started. He was their guy. Now they've switched it up a lot at the other safety position. You know, Conrad Hussey started. KJ Kirkland started last week. KJ Kirkland, they're both young guys. Both done really well. KJ Kirkland had kind of felt like he earned that role with the way he's been playing recently. But also when you go in the secondary, these young kids who might not be starting have been really good. Quindarius Jones had 3 PBUs to tie the team lead on one drive last week against Cal, and it was an important drive to get that stop on. And then Edwin Joseph, who kind of plays everywhere. He plays nickel. He plays corner. A lot of guys said he reminded him of Jamie Robinson, who's now with the Carolina Panthers. He had his first interception last week. He kind of started flashing on special teams. A lot of the guy would catch the putt, and he would be in on that tackle right away without even a chance to take a step for the returner. And he earned that role, and he took advantage of it by also really getting the game-winning sack on 4th down last week.
When you look at the keys to victory for Florida State, what would you characterize those as, you know, going into this game against SMU? What do they have to do to come away with a win on the road?
I think it starts with establishing the run, really. That's what this team's goal has been all year. Like I said, DJ, they don't want DJ to be flashy. They don't want DJ to be this big star. They want to establish the run. Now, does that get harder without Roydell Williams and Jalen Lucas? Yes, I would say more with Roydell Williams. But also, I think Roydell Williams and Cam Davis are very similar. They're both tough runners, like we said, huge. I think they're very similar, and I think Cam has kind of adapted to that when he because he's learned a lot from Roydell. They have the same style, like I said, and I think that'll be fine with them. I don't think they'll really miss a beat. Again, Cam's going to be a stud, and I think it'll really show out this game. But Lawrence Toafili is going to have to be that guy. While he's not a big bruiser like Cam Davis or Roydell Williams, he's going to be a guy who needs to get off the edge and find space.
So what do you have as your prediction for this matchup?
I've been going back and forth. Last week, I was like, all right, I'm finally going to a game away. I get to go home. I'm like, all right, it's going to be a win. I feel it good. I like the momentum. But right now, early in the week, I like where SMU sits. I don't know an exact score. I would probably guess on the lower end, just the way these Florida State these games have been going. Probably like a 21-28 SMU or maybe even 24-28 SMU.
Yeah, I think this is last week SMU hit the over by themselves, but a lot of things happened for that to happen, which, I mean, you never know. If they find that confidence, who knows what can happen. But I'm with you. I think this is a defensive slugfest. I think this is the game that introduces SMU fans to what I think a lot of ACC games are. I mean, I turn on, games around the country, and in terms of the ACC, and it just seems like it's a lot more defensive minded. It's just, there's good coaching, there's strong battles, and that sometimes leads to lower scores.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you this too, and the defense has been great. The ACC, the way it is, just kind of gone out. It's been a pretty defensive league so far. Even like look at Georgia Tech, another who we already played, the run the ball, ground and pound, and just control the game yourself. That's really been the theme of the ACC this year. So I was wondering, what's the kind of fan, like, is it going to be packed at SMU this week? Is that what expected? I know you set the student record last week. Is it expected to come again? I know there's a lot of fans traveling because this is one of the big cities we get to go to.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. With the start that FSU had, you still expect them to travel, right? I mean, I know there's a ton of Florida State fans. There's a ton of alums. It's a big school. The first time to go to Dallas, are they still going to show up? Because if so, we're going to be looking at a packed crowd. The students will sell out. They actually had to kind of expand their ticket block for last game, and it was a pretty close to a sellout game for the TCU game. I think there's some Frog fans that didn't make the trip over for whatever reason. But I mean, you're looking at a stadium that has a brand new end zone complex. You'll, I think, enjoy the changes that they've made to, which, I mean, it'll just be your first time, but the changes that they made to the game day experience, both the pregame show, during the game. I mean, it seems like from the fan perspective, it should be a really good time. And I'm actually on our site. I'll have a bunch of articles for fans to kind of check out as far as maybe where to go eat before the game or get drinks and things like that. Some good Dallas spots for FSU fans to check out. But if FSU fans are traveling, I think we're looking at a sellout. And I know it was already close to it was already a sellout from the student perspective for the program.
Yeah, I mean, so to put it in perspective, I'm not going for work. I'm going for fun, right? So we're actually taking a party bus to the game from my house, just tailgating at my house, and we have 19 people on the party bus just going to the game alone in that. And I know a lot of people are going. At first, this was the big travel one. It was this and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a little harder to get to just because you have a direct flight from Tallahassee to Dallas, which makes this a lot easier. But I still think there's going to be a decent amount, not as much as there was, but I still think there's going to be a decent amount.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll get you out of there. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff going on with Florida State in the league. We'll see kind of what happens with that. I think if they come up with more money, it'll at least work for now. But how do FSU fans feel about SMU? I mean, is it still very much kind of a toss-in? Is it a program that at least they won the league last year and they're going to bring a new market? Is SMU kind of already above some other schools in the league already?
I think they do put them above some schools in the league just because that Texas feel, right? Football, look, we all don't like Wake Forest and all those small schools. We like how SMU has that big time feel. Me being from Dallas, I was like, everyone's surprised about all the money getting thrown around. I'm like, guys, this has always been a program where if you gave them a big stage, the donors were going to be there and it was going to be game on, right? And I think people see that. I think FSU fans have a lot of respect for that. Good thing you guys got rid of that hill, or else Florida State fans would make fun of it. We make fun of it for Wake Forest all the time.
There we go. That's the that settles a big debate on the message boards. A lot of people like it to have their kids, roll down the hill or whatever. But I'll tell you what, I've been in a good number of football facilities, and what they did there is first class all the way. 192,000 square feet of space, which is massive. So should be a good atmosphere. 7 o'clock, ACC Huddle is going to be there. ACC Network and our guys at War Chant are going to have it all covered from the FSU side. So be sure to follow them all. Follow Matt LaSerre and the entire War Chant team over there. They do great work, tons of content all day, every day over there at War Chant. So check them out, SMU fans. And Matt, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Excited to get down there.
Welcome back to the On the Pony Express podcast. Thanks for listening. Great to have Matt LaSerre, a Texan, on the podcast to give an early glimpse at Florida State. And look, we are going to have so much coverage of this game, the first one of SMU's ACC era. We'll have that for you throughout the week at the On the Pony Express podcast. Reminder, guys, join On the Pony Express and get 50% off annual subscriptions now. Go to ontheponyexpress.com. Join using code PONYUP, okay? This isn't going to last much longer. We're doing it as a part of the celebration of the ACC games that are this week, and I believe next week we're going to do it depending on how crazy you guys get with it. But we had a ton of people jump on board with us after SMU beat TCU, so taking advantage of that special. We're not doing many specials. We want people that want to be on the site for a long time, so that's why we're doing it for annual subscribers only. Before we get to SMU's latest commitment, though, we do have to pay the bills and tell you guys about our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. I told you we'd have some fresh footage for you, and they just got done doing a project down in Lower Greenville. You get the putting area on the side of the house, which is, for me, the hardest part of the entire home yard maintenance. There's a lot of shade. So on the side of your house, you could have a little putting area. You can have a little mini course. And then look at the backyard. Pristine. They run it right up to the trees there. And then obviously edge it out and everything like that for you along the side of the yard. Got it sloping away so it doesn't puddle. What a job by AKM Turf and Greens. Reach out to them. info@akmturfandgreens.com. Use code PONYUP and mention On the Pony Express when you reach out to them to renovate your backyard and give you the backyard of your dreams. Whether you want a bunch of turf or whether you want a putting green situation like this, let AKM Turf and Greens help you out. They're servicing DFW, surrounding areas, and for the right jobs, they'll go even farther than that. So reach out to them today. SMU got big news on the commitment front. Sunday evening, they picked up a local prospect and a big name on the board for Ricky Hundley at the cornerback spot, and that is Victor Lincoln out of Lancaster. Big-time prospect who had offers from Baylor, North Texas, Texas State, and others. Had his choice of Power 5 offers, including Arkansas, Boston College, and others, but it's the Mustangs that come away with his commitment to kick off the 2026 class. He's a guy that has been on the radar for Ricky Hundley for a minute now, but sometimes you get a big win, and guys have been there, guys are feeling it, and Victor Lincoln jumped on board as he was able to make that commitment, announce it, and give SMU commitment number 1 in the class of 2026. So a big deal there. He'll get ranked soon by our On3 team. And for Ricky Hundley, he's done a good job of getting his cornerback room and his position kind of taken care of throughout his tenure at SMU. And we've seen him go from addressing it in the transfer portal with guys like Charles Woods and Chris Meganson, and then bringing back some guys like a Brandon Crosley and Jalen Davis-Robinson, AJ Davis. You add Deuce Harmon, you have Jahari Rogers, I believe, was one of, if not the highest ranked PFF guys for SMU last week against TCU. But he is really a talented corner who's going to add weight over the course of his high school career and then get into college. He's got good frame, good length, good speed. He actually ran a low 4.5 40 on a strained hamstring at camp this summer and won a bunch of reps against some really high-quality talent that did come through and camp. And as a note from the competitive side of things, he really wasn't supposed to run that 40. I mean, he was there to compete or whatever, but when you have a strained hammy, you don't want to make it worse. He snuck in line and ran it, I was told. So that was something that's really funny. and he grew up in Kansas City and, just ended up, making his way down to Lancaster, and he's at that talent-rich program, which SMU is after quite a few guys there, as always, it seems like. And he made his commitment on Sunday, and first guy who we'll get him a profile picture here soon, but one of the first guys to recognize that commitment was Isaiah Lee, running back out of Lancaster. Really one of the top running backs in the entire state of Texas in the class of 2026. He's got Baylor, he's got TCU, he's got SMU leading the way on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. And that lead technically really should jump up another notch, because he was on campus this past weekend to watch SMU beat up TCU. He's got an Oregon offer. He's got Utah. He's got Arizona State. So Kyle Cooper, Ricky Hunley leading the way on him as well. He would be, one of the top targets in the 2026 class for SMU at the running back position. So big news to kick off the 2026 class for SMU, which, I think has a chance to be really good. This is where you're going to see a lot of the groundwork over the past year, 2 years on those guys really pay off, because SMU got into the ACC really at the beginning of the 2025 class's junior season. And so a lot of those guys, the high profile ones, maybe had offers from elsewhere, had some bigger name schools that were already in on them, things like that. And they weren't paying as much attention to SMU. These 2026 guys, they were just beginning their sophomore years. SMU has been really kind of careful in a sense on this 2026 class. They've gone a little bit more national within the ACC footprint as well, going to Florida, going to Georgia, going to California, places like that. But when you look at what they're doing in the class of 2026, I mean, it's really good. I mean, if you look at the visitor list that we had posted at ontheponyexpress.com and some of the reactions from those guys at ontheponyexpress.com, you're looking at a group that could be really, really talented when it's all said and done. And it's the 2025 class is sitting around kind of top 25 land. And if SMU goes out and flips a couple big name guys or highly ranked guys, they could maybe finish in the top 25. But they know that they're going to have a bunch of spots as 6 wide receivers graduate, offensive linemen move on, defensive line needs to be addressed. You're going to have to do a lot of that through the transfer portal, quite frankly, to kind of help with the group that you have coming in the 2025 class. 2026 is really going to be a group that I expect to be largely high school. And there's just so many spots in 25 that SMU being at 22 commitments or so, they're still going to be able to, address the transfers. With 2026, I really think Rhett Lashley and the staff want to make it a banger in terms of, making it really about high school guys and kind of continuing on that building of the roster. I mean, we've seen it at certain spots. Like you look at where the running back position is kind of headed. You look at the linebacker position. You look at corner, safety. Those particular spots really have a lot of high school depth that's being built up. And in 2026, I look for the offensive line, the wide receivers. They'll find a quarterback. Obviously, they have Ty Hawkins, a highly touted guy in 2025, but they're going to continue to check their boxes. But now, offensive line, defensive line, those are the types of areas in wide receiver that I'd expect in 2026 you can find a way to make a serious move with. And it's hard to do. But now that they're in the ACC, now that they have this momentum with that win over TCU, they're going to look to capitalize on it as well. And we can see the 2026 class be a lot of fun. So tons of reactions from recruits at ontheponyexpress.com. We'll have full stories all week on everyone. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do a big old war room for you guys once a week, because this is where it's at right now in recruiting as far as what SMU is doing. It's a really strong time of year. So maybe we'll start doing a once a week war room, because it was a good experience for recruits when you go and you hit all of them up after the game or during the game. And I mean, you get back probably 25 responses. I mean, that says a lot. Sometimes kids will just be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm out, going home after this game. I don't need to talk to Billy, which is fine. And for them to respond and then keep responding, there's a lot of excitement around this program. And I try not to pay attention to social media or this or that when it comes to following recruits. I want to try and follow the actions and follow kind of what the buzz is way after the fact. But when you see that type of a overwhelming response and it be all positive for the most part, that says a lot about what Rhett Lashley and his staff are doing and doing in terms of their game presentation for recruits and also what they're doing on the field. I'll add that if you got a chance to see any recruits up close, they had iron skillets as name tags, which was cool. And it didn't say TCU, it said Texas Christian as well. So, make of that what you will. But very, very nice attention to detail from SMU's recruiting staff there. Again, they had a loaded group on campus. That's why you should subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. We're also going to do a recruiting insider podcast tomorrow. It's my plan. Might record it tonight, who knows, but probably tomorrow do one of those for premium members on our YouTube channel or at ontheponyexpress.com. But I want to wrap up with kind of a closing thought on football recruiting. And as SMU did dish out a new offer, I got to shout them out this past weekend, and one that I've been following very closely for a minute now, and that's Weston Nielsen out of Bastrop High. He's a 4-star prospect, 2027 quarterback. So like Dean said on the postgame podcast, I can't even remember how he said it, but basically that all the SMU players weren't born the last time SMU beat TCU at home. And let me tell you, that was a tough one. That was a tough one when Dean said that. But when you look at Weston Nielsen, he's on the radar in a big way right off the bat and has been extraordinary when it comes to what he's doing on the field already for Bastrop. That's a really talent-rich program. I mean, he's got some really talented playmakers around him. He's got a 2027 tight end in Case Benoit as well that should really be on SMU's radar for the 2027 class, who can really, I think, one day pick up some offers and get rolling. And then also, I mean, Bastrop was well represented at SMU on Saturday. I might be butchering this name, but Austin Moylan, maybe I tried to make too much of that, but already got an Arizona State offer. His sister is on the dance squad for SMU, the Palm or the Cheer, one of the two. And he really enjoyed himself. Weston really enjoyed himself. So worth monitoring those two guys. Weston's the one that picked up the offer over the weekend, but Austin certainly is there. And then Case is another name to know at Bastrop. And then SMU went out into the 2027 class and offered Jaquan Snell, who's a really talented player. He can really go on the back end of that secondary for Waxahachie. Number one safety in America. Really, really talented, who is first cousins with Jalen Davis Robinson. Again, he was on campus. He just picked up his offer. And SMU also had one of his teammates on campus as well, and another highly touted prospect in the 2027 class who has an SMU offer. And I think once I plug in the visits and get done doing that over the course of the rest of the week, Jerry Meyer III it'll look like more of a battle there instead of a way too early prediction that he ends up at Baylor. But both of those guys were on campus checking out SMU. So again, it just speaks to the amount of talent they had on campus. And Jaquan Snell added an offer from SMU. So they wanted to do in person. That's something that we're really seeing a lot of when it comes to the staff, is they like guys to come through. It's another thing that they said about when I was talking with Weston and just kind of getting his thoughts on the offer for a story. He said they've been wanting to do it. They just wanted me to, come through and see them. They also offered Jaden Fields out of Hutto, big time wide receiver in the 2027 class. So he's on the radar as well. This was a big weekend for SMU. So anybody that was on campus and they were able to, extend an offer while they were here, I think it meant a lot to them. So a big run of recruiting for SMU over the weekend. And then I want to finish up with basketball. And they deserve a shout out here because they had two of the best underclassmen in the country. We talked about the two official visitors that SMU had on campus in Jerry Easter, 4-star combo guard out of Link Academy, who's the number 2 overall combo guard in the country, 4 on 3. He's number 3 on the on 3 industry ranking. And then you look at Jaden Toombs, who came with him for an official visit as well. He's set to announce his decision, I believe, Wednesday night. So it could be consecutive weeks that SMU picks up big time basketball commitments. There's, if you're watching on YouTube, you see he's got the On3 recruiting prediction machine lead for SMU there. So that is a good sign for the most part, as always. And he's a top 50 prospect. He's number 4 center in the country. He was on campus for an official visit. I did drop more intel at ontheponyexpress.com on those two. But let me slide over and talk about Dakari Spear, top 100 prospect in the country. One of the guys that early on SMU's prioritized really well. And he came through and was on campus for an unofficial visit and got to spend more time around the staff. And that's the type of guy that you want to get in on early. And same goes for Davion Adkins, a top 25 prospect for On3. So if the rankings ended today, he'd be a 5-star. Number 3 power forward in America. He's from Dallas, Texas, over at Faith Family Academy of Oak Cliff. And that is interesting as well, as they are very familiar with that program. And he's very much on the radar, one of the top prospects in America. Again, would be a 5-star on On3 if the rankings ended today. And you look to him as somebody that you want to keep getting around campus, get him in Moody when the games begin, and just keep having him around your program. So what a monster weekend it was for the recruiting side of things. And I think for SMU overall, between basketball, football, I'm sure other sports were taking advantage of it as well. What a scene. What a scene in Ford Stadium. Florida State comes to town this weekend. You heard us start to preview that. It'll be another busy recruiting weekend. And I don't know if there will be more football, offers dished out and things like that, but it's going to be a hot ticket with FSU and SMU facing off. ACC Huddle will be here as well. So they're expected to be broadcasting Friday afternoon from campus, and then they'll be broadcasting pretty much, I believe, all day on Saturday, on and off. That's kind of where the ACC network throws things to. So what a weekend it's going to be. I don't really have too much else on recruiting. I guess I do want to close with a couple other things on the team. I asked Rhett Lashley about it in the post-game special teams and their improvement. And I think it just speaks to the depth of this team. Rhett talked about it when you have so many players that want to play on teams, want to make an impact, and they do it because it can help the team. They're not too selfish that, they can't play teams and they can't help out overall. And for SMU to have a punt return unit that, doesn't have overlap with punt return unit that doesn't have overlap with the punt coverage unit, and to have, a veteran long snapper in Will Benton, who's back again. And obviously a lot was made of his first snap of the season, but SMU has a good special teams unit, and Roderick Daniels, took the punt back. He didn't end up getting honors this week, but I know he was a finalist for special teams player of the week in the ACC. But I mean, you even look at the depth, like a guy like Terrion Lee Jr., that kick return was fired right at him, and he was able to grab it and return it for a few yards, and it made a difference. So SMU in the past has gotten outclassed, quite frankly, against TCU in special teams. And a lot of people were nervous about special teams after they saw what TCU did to UCF at times. But they held up their end of the bargain this week, and I think that's worth noting. Rhett Lashley talks on Tuesday, so I'll let him address any other injuries. But we did talk about on the board Jalen Knighton. He's likely, it's pretty much confirmed he's out for the year when it comes to his knee injury. Rhett alluded to that on his weekly radio show last week. So we'll see. I mean, there's a chance he comes back for the end of the season, but he's out for a bit. So best wishes to Rooster. That means you're going to see a lot more of Brashard Smith and LJ Johnson if he's able to bounce back from whatever happened to him. And then Derek McFall. You got to have freshmen that step up throughout the course of the year, and Derek McFall might be his time to really step not into the limelight, because Brashard Smith certainly has that, and he was named running back of the week by the ACC, with Ahmad Moses, the safety spot, being named defensive back of the week for his performance against TCU. But when you look at what Brashard has done, he's certainly a bell cow, and if he can stay durable and stay healthy, it's going to be a huge deal for SMU. So covered a lot of ground this podcast. And on Tuesday, we'll also have, on Wednesday morning, we'll have Hayden Howerton breaking down SMU beating TCU. And then on Thursday morning, we'll have Hayden Howerton and myself breaking down FSU and kind of looking ahead and maybe a special guest. We'll see how that goes. But hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I want to thank, in particular, our friends at Goat Fuel. This is a new friend of the program right here. Goat Fuel was started by Jerry Rice. Everybody know who that is? The GOAT. He was started by Jerry Rice and his family, and it's really about giving you all of the right electrolytes, nutritious, bits that you could want in a drink. So I love the flavors. Watermelon Punch is the one I've got here. Zero sugar, got essential vitamins, cordyceps as well. And so it just creates this really perfect balance of natural caffeine, electrolytes, BCAAs, and more. And so I've really enjoyed it. It's been something that I've been introduced to by a friend of the program and really enjoyed getting to try it as well. It helps you stay sharp. I drink it before I work out, or, like this coming weekend, SMU plays Florida State at 7:00. We'll have our post-game show probably, good Lord, probably midnight for that. So I need Goat Fuel to help me stay up late for that one. So check out Goat Fuel. Jerry Rice started it. He is the GOAT, and they'll have a lot more exciting news to share with you guys as they continue to grow as a company. They're sold out on their website, so you can actually find it on Amazon. That is where I'd recommend checking out Goat Fuel. So be sure to take a look at that, but just wanted to shout them out. And also, of course, we've got to remind you guys to check out statusjet.com. Statusjet.com is where you can reach out to David Henry and his team for all the latest on how you can get from point A to point B for those ACC road games using code PonyUpACC. It gets you a discount. I've had a couple people book lately with StatusJet, and they were super pumped about the discount that it brought in for them. So appreciate those of you at On the Pony Express who have checked out StatusJet, and we appreciate their partnership as well with us at On the Pony Express. So reach out to them today. Hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the podcast. We'll catch you guys later this week with another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU-on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.